The purpose of teleport is to give the user a greater level of control when setting up a live performance environment, while at the same time making it easy switching between completely different setups as you are playing. Here, for example, the two hands are playing two different VST sampler instruments. At its core, Teleport's instrument bay lets you store any number of patches, both of VST instruments and hardware instruments. The 8 mixer channels and 4 buses are also independent modules, each letting you store VST effects, along with the settings for instant recall. A single click changes the main page and recalls new mixer settings along with new MIDI routing and reprograms 3 different synthesizers. Of course, it's not just about directly playing instruments. Here, Time Graph controls 3 modulation graphs that are set up to trigger when I play the keyboard and function as a programmable and morphable envelope, or LFO if you will. Without changing the modulation graphs, I can morph between 2 different time graphs and thus create variations in the modulation. You can also offset the amount or depth of the modulation to add further control of your sound. Adding to that, you can use these modules to trigger notes as well. Here you can see how different synthesizers respond to what I play in different ways, but all act as a sort of programmable hyper-arpeggiator, basically letting you play a whole song this way and improvise freely. Now the astute will think, if you can do that, you can probably also sequence. And yes, here we welcome modular augmented sequencing. Using the same sounds and modules, we now have a techno machine that keeps on playing but uses the last pressed note as basis for the played notality. Teleport also has a 4-track MIDI looper that can grab anything, including whatever knob you turn on a hardware instrument. The whole approach being modular, the loops are anything but static. As you can see here, where I'm looping changes into different active rhythmic modules to create rhythmic variation along with the harmonic variation already happening in the notality modules. When the sequencing module is already playing, as in this example, the looper syncs to the playing tempo. But just as with your normal audio looping device, you can start a song from nothing. Here is set up with a few direct sounds where the first looper sets the tempo and let me bring in whatever modules to play with. You can stack loops together, overlap into them and start and stop as you like, creating parts on the fly. On a separate loop track, I add a long filter sweep on one synthesizer, as well as creating a slow LFO-like motion on the mid-range of a VST EQ on a mixer channel. Then, on a third loop, I add a sort of harmonic theme. After playing around with that, and for the sake of keeping the demo short, I stop the first 2 loops and get ready to transition into a completely new set. is, of course, there's no need for nasty time stretching. Time is fluid as to speed up the whole thing. Teleport allows you to treat your song sort of like a DJ would. By using the built-in audio looper on the master mixer channel, I grab a loop of what is currently playing in real time. After that, I stop everything that is playing and use the main page to call over a completely new set with new instruments, new mixer and effects, and new sequencing settings. Both the audio looper and the real-time audio have their own integrated bandpass filters and volume settings that I can use to mix with, as well as a couple of independent VST slots just for that purpose. Having no DJ experience, I do my best to use these features in combination to mix from the first song into the new. Here, you hear something more sequenced. As in the first set, the main synth is playing what I'm playing on the keyboard. The bass, however, uses a pre-made pattern. It does introduce one other feature though. Every time I play the F note, the bass changes to a different pattern containing that F. When I press F sharp again, it changes back to the first pattern where F sharp happens to be one of the notes. All sequencing modules have this ability and lets you teleport straight into the middle of another pattern, either depending on specific notes, velocity ranges, or when certain controllers hit certain values. So far all the examples have involved playing a lot of notes on the keyboard. You can also use teleport more along the lines of a typical sequencer, having more composed songs, but with the added benefits of the modular approach. Here the instruments are completely composed, but the time is controlled from a single time module with only 12 points. This means that I can make drastic rhythmic changes to all the instruments at the same time, simply by morphing that one time module into something else. The guitar on top of the sequences is played directly, but the held notes are also repeated by those same time points. Using a velocity scale factor on the produced notes, I can make some nice sonic variations. You can also do the opposite and go completely live, the ambition of the program really. The following example has no rhythmical sequences or time graphs, only a bunch of different instruments being triggered by different notes and altered by others. There is one time module though, being used but in quite a different way. It plays a different percussive sound every 8th note after a key on the keyboard is pressed. With this you could for example play live techno with 2 fingers, having the percussive parts fall in between automatically. Or you could play a melodic tune where the melody you play also directly plays drum, bass and percussion. Here introducing follow mode, where the melody is played rhythmically directly by my keystrokes, but with different notes that I'm actually playing. Teleport also has an involved tap tempo functionality, letting you set from which key range and from how many hits to calculate, and finally over how many milliseconds to gradually change the tempo. This way having the tempo constantly move slightly to follow along as you're playing, in this case affecting both delay and the mentioned 8th note triggering. There's also live quantize functionality that in this case invites me to play somewhat more crazy. original style, playing a couple of new instruments directly with my left hand. Having both hands occupied at this level where even grabbing a MIDI loop would be difficult inspired the addition of yet another module called the Sun. Keeping the modular approach, it is the only traditional linear sequencing module in the program, placed above all the other modules and sending out its rays to the 7 sequencing planets, basically giving you extra hands. Exactly what I was just playing directly is now being played by that module, allowing me to take it easy and jam along. Then finally, a completely live outro.